Matt, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Outstanding. So tell us about how big you guys are, how much video you're serving, and how much of that is pre-roll, and what are the opportunities for you to surface up video that's not pre-roll?
Sure, there's a lot there. We are, as Andy said, the largest English language newspaper site in the world. We reach about 180 million monthly unique visitors, about 60 in the US. Just to put it in perspective, it's about third US, third UK, third rest of the world. And the US is actually our largest single market by a hair, which is a sort of ironic metaphor for me. But so that's sort of our size in total. We do about 4.5 billion page views a month, and for our category, we are the largest distributor of video. We have more video consumption than any other newspaper site in the world, upwards of 50 million editorial streams a month. So when you think about all those numbers and you think about the pre-roll opportunity and we're the largest, it still makes up about 2%, even less than 2% of our page views result in a video stream. And so looking for opportunities to leverage video, to leverage brands' videos in other ways is important for us because we have all this opportunity in terms of page views to monetize through video, which is obviously a desirable format. And we're really focused on three things in terms of our go-to-market: native, high impact display, and video. So let's lop off video because we largely mean pre-roll when we discuss that. The other two are really those opportunities to include video in a different way other than pre-roll. And as it relates to native, what we're doing now, and this is recently, John Steinberg from BuzzFeed joined us about 6 weeks ago, and we've sort of retooled our offering in the manner in which I just mentioned. Native for us is developing stories for brands using the exact same sort of secret sauce that we use for our consumers. So we use the exact same editorial process and write content, promote it the same way, and drive users to it. And when we do that, we have the opportunity to include video, and that video can be limitless in terms of length. So we just ran a campaign with a TuneIn advertiser and ran 6-minute clips from the show that they were supporting on the pages with the stories that supported the campaign. So that's how we're addressing it as it relates to native. In terms of high impact display, for a while now we've really focused on large format, utilizing IAB Rising Star units, specifically for us a combination of billboards with scrolling skins. And we've seen an enormous amount of success embedding videos in those units to drive consumption and distribution of their videos, no matter what the length. To drive it, it works really well for TuneIn. But I would also say we've had a large, recently did a large campaign with a CPG advertiser in which we produced 18 90-second videos and used those formats to get them out there.
So now, where does it stand in terms of selling these formats, this sort of rich video display units, if you will, to the brands? How do they see it? How is it priced? Where does it stand? And where do you think it can develop for you guys as sort of a percentage of video advertising versus pre-roll over time?
Well, I think the way it's sold is packaged as high impact display, and we highly encourage our clients to include video because we see the lift it gets in response rate. And also it gives us deeper metrics, things like play initiation, completion rates, and the like. So it's packaged as part of a high impact display buy. It's priced in accordance with our high impact display rates. And I think today, when I mentioned that 2% of our page views result in a video initiation, that's a huge opportunity for us, right? To increase the amount of video consumption we have and increase our pre-roll inventory. And we'd like to see that grow. But certainly today, the opportunity is much larger on the high impact display side because we have so much more of that inventory.
And not to get too deep in the weeds, but there's a lot of, what about the contextualization of these ads with the proper pages and attribution and also how that sort of the value that creates to the advertisers?
Yeah, so one of the things that we really like, we use a tool called Grapeshot. And what that does is it gives us the ability to create custom contextual segments. And they can be sort of proactively built or they can be deductive. So we could use it as a brand safety tool in the terms of keep these ads away from pages that use these sort of terms, or we could build a segment that relates to specific groups of content that are around context. So we ran a campaign for a CPG advertiser, around the Olympics, and we were able to create an Olympic segment, which, think of it as a virtual channel. If you think about, I don't know, 5-10 years ago in the business, if somebody wanted to sponsor Olympic content, you would say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to create an Olympic channel and you're going to sponsor the channel. What we did here was we created an Olympic channel that was related to the content on various pages. And in fact, not all of those pages were necessarily categorized as Olympic stories. During the Olympics, one of the big heroes was TJ Oshie, guy who won the shootout against Russia. And one of our big stories was his fiance. And that actually, for us, was a news story, but it was very relevant for this advertiser with him being an Olympic hero. So we can create custom segments, custom contextual segments, and then target the ads to those pages.
And let me ask you about Autoplay versus Optin, and where do you guys stand as publishers, and where does the industry stand, and what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think the industry, and rightly so, draws a distinction between the two. And I know for us, whenever we do anything that's autoplay, it's audio off, so sound off, and we measure how many interactions in terms of sound ons that we get. And we typically see sort of high single digits in that, which tends to be pretty good. So, I think from our perspective as a publisher, almost all rich media activation has to result on some consumer engagement, the lowest level being a mouse over, which we rarely do anything that expanded on that, but typically a click. And we would look for some level of interaction to open a player, much in the same way e-buzzing would. But we do have certain units that will autoplay video with sound off. And we charge, I think we would charge an appropriate rate for that.
So tell us a little bit about, if you look at your 5 billion monthly views or whatever it is, how many of those views would you like to have, how many of those views have video as display, and how might that percentage grow in time? What are sort of the plans there?
So today, about, let's say 20% of our stories, we produce about 900 stories a day. So really what makes us who we are is this velocity of content. So we're producing 900 stories a day, we have 300 editors, and that's what's driving all that consumption. I would say maybe 20% of those pages, those stories, has a video on it. And as I mentioned, about 2% result in a video play. One of the things is we'd like to radically increase the amount of video we're publishing. And one of the things we've done historically is most of our video that we publish have been clips, and we're going to get much more involved in original video production.
So the video that's served in a display scenario, let's say, is not just ads; it's editorial, or tell us about that. In these sort of units,
it's editorial. Well, no, not in the units. Mm-hmm. Just to make sure I understand, I was just referring to our video player and what we would run a pre-roll in front of. Right. When we're using high impact display, it could be, if we're running video in it, if we're working with a tune-in advertiser, it could be their 15 or 30 second spot, which I think we've all discussed and agree is probably not the best solution, because that could easily run as pre-roll. Usually we like a long form trailer. So that's one solution. As I mentioned, with a CPG advertiser, we ran a campaign where we created 90-second vignettes, and we ran those in a high-impact display unit. So it could be created from the client, could be co-created, it could be something we create for them.
So in sort of a broader sense, display, we know the issues of display and publishing and pricing. Is this video display scenario, as however we want to call it, sort of a big opportunity for publishers that you think will change things, or what are the opportunities and where might this roll out for the industry? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Sure. I'm speaking very specifically about us. It's been phenomenal. It's a rich format that I think users engage with at a much higher, at least we see a much higher engagement level, measured by whatever the metric is, interaction, click-through rate. But when we look at all the KPIs, when we utilize video in high-impact formats, we get a much higher response rate across the board than we do when we don't. So for us, if you look at the benefit of utilizing those formats, as a publisher, it increases our revenue per page. But I think more importantly for the advertiser, it delivers a greater return. So even though they're paying more for it, they're getting a 2-3x return for less than that in incremental rate.